growing up, you mom is an elf, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Named, looking for it. What's the name of mom?
Merwin.
Merwin. Is it Merwin or Merwin?
Merwin, whichever. Merwin. Like Merwin.
Mir? Okay.
Mir.
And dad, Ross.
Ross.
Mom being considerably older than Ross. Yeah.
Elves.
Because elves. But as far as like the physicality of it all, she looks, appropriate age. Being raised by an elven mother and a human father stayed together. That's not typical in Nevin. But this is kind of an atypical circumstance where they're part of a performance troupe. Traveling around Nevin, never really having to fit social norms. So things that are out of the ordinary are perfectly okay. And if anybody ever feels judgmental, like wanting, like kind of opting towards or leaning towards being judgmental, as soon as they see that you being a half elf or seeing their relationship, they see all the other wacky things, like way more wacky things in your troupe, and they're like, oh, okay, they're performers, and suddenly everything's fine. It's like that's what they expect, from a performance group like this.
Good.
You're not a typical half elf though.
Right.
You got them dreams going. You've always had really vivid dreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You never thought that it really meant anything, but one of the things that you remember from a very early age is from when you started really from when your dreams moved from vivid to almost lifelike. There's been a dream that's been recurring. In this dream, you're in a field, and there's a herd of sheep, all of them moving around in like a giant circle in a group, just kind of following each other. And getting closer to the center of this group, the circles grow tighter and tighter and tighter, until in the very center, there's just like a little bit of a gap, but there's notably one sheep that's kind of standing on kind of hind legs, standing taller than all the other sheep. And when you look at this sheep, look a bit closer, closer inspection, you see that it's actually a wolf wearing sheep's wool. As you try to get closer to you're prevented from getting closer to the middle of this giant sheep circle because of all the herd, because of the herding sheep. But as you start to step closer, there's always like a flash, and then you find yourself out of that field, and actually you're in a courtyard. Cobblestones cover the ground, and there's a crowd of people surrounding you. There's a ball of light that is next to you, kind of hovering gently over the ground, just in the air. It's got a soothing glow to it. From a high balcony in a towering structure in front of you, that all the people are looking at, is a shadowy figure standing on the balcony. Suddenly, a rope extends from the balcony, and the end of it flies down to kind of your location, and somehow it wraps around the ball of light. As soon as this happens, the crowd turns on the ball of light, and they all kind of start piling onto the light and wrapping more rope around it. As more and more rope, just gets tied to the light, and kind of extending almost like it's so it's coil. It's tightly coiled, and it's got like strands of rope going in all different directions. You hear the rope start to tighten and being pulled taut. And then as it gets tighter and tighter, the light ball suddenly bursts under the pressure and an explosion of ash. A mound of it accumulates underneath where it was floating, and then the crowd disperses. There's a subtle movement below the gray dust, and you waiting to kind of to see what it is. A raven emerges from the ashes, and you can almost swear that it makes eye contact with you. And then it flies away, majestic as it catches the wind. And so this is a dream that you have, that you remember having. It was very vivid, very memorable. You remember this dream. And then what strikes you as odd is that you have it a second time, months later. And this is the only dream that you've ever had where you've had it more than once. 13-year-old Wren, yeah?
Yeah.
So you are currently in a small town to the north of Tavares. Tavares being that the major city down there to the south, close to the coast. So you guys have been performing in this town for a few 10 days now. Thunderous applause erupts as Wren Kensleigh lands the final stance in his grand finale magic act. While everyone's hands are up above their waists, applauding or cheering, you see the typical combing, is what they call it, where skilled pickers, they're called, going through the crowds and just snatching little coin purses and money pouches.
Shady.
Yep. And so this is an average normal scene for you. And as you're walking back to your tent, you pass by several other acts that you've kind of grown accustomed to, and all being performed by people that you consider family. The saying, "It takes a village to raise a kid." Well, this is your village, right? These are your village people, and you do kind of walk by the end of an act being performed by a newcomer. You haven't really caught his name yet, but he's a recent addition to the troupe, and he's a highly skilled knife juggler. You walk into your tent and you see your mom sitting on a small wooden chair, kind of off to the side, reading a book that is written in Elven, and it seems to be what she does with most of her time whenever she's not teaching you. Out of one of her many books, she's reading one herself, oftentimes the same one. She never really lets you have that particular book, but you know that it must be something from her past. It's something special to her. The flap on your tent flies open, and your dad strode in, and he seems very excited. And he says, "Mayor, I've just got great news." So Merwin's only response is she doesn't even look away from her book. She just kind of raises an eyebrow. This is a typical kind of thing. Like, Dad's always excited. He's always got great news. He says, "Oldest Goranov is going to be in Tavares at the same time we are. He's the biggest Goliathan in this part of Nevin, maybe in all of Nevin. He's going to draw a crowd. Is good fortunes for us. We might even stay in Tavares for longer than a couple of 10 days. If the profits are good."
That's great, Dad. I'm excited.
And he ruffles your head as he walks by and gives your mom a kiss. He looks back down at you and kind of squats down, kind of to get on your level. And even though you're 13, you've gotten bigger, but you still haven't hit full height yet. And so he squats down, very lovingly, and he says to you, and you can tell his eyes are really bright. He's excited. He says, "We're going to see some incredible things in Tavares. Things like you've never seen before in any other city. It truly is a city of wonders."
When do we get to go?
We're leaving out tomorrow. Actually, not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. We have one more set of performances tomorrow. So get some good rest. We've got to pack up. We've got a big day.
I can't wait.
You fall asleep that night thinking of all the new adventures that are awaiting you in the next part of your journey. That night, you dream again. But a different dream. You're walking alone in the woods, beams of moonlight streaming through gaps in the trees, accompanied by yellow glows from fireflies. As you walk down the path, you think you catch a glimpse of a dark gray blur almost, passing between a couple of trees. You think nothing of it, but you kind of have a sense of like red flags going on. You feel silly almost, thinking that there's something dangerous around you. But you carry on. You keep walking forward. You don't know where, but just a sense of caution inside. Another flash. This time, much closer to you, like diving into a bush. You definitely see a gray streak. It looks like it was fur. You see a tail. It was very rough looking fur, like unkept, wild. The danger is real now. And so out of fear, you start running down the path. Not looking back, not really looking side to side. You're looking more straight ahead. You do take a chance and you look back. You don't see anything, so you look back ahead of you to keep going forward. And that's where you see it's now standing in front of you in the path. A wolf. Its fur raised up on its neck, looking directly at you, eyes very intense, and suddenly it shows its teeth, and you hear a low growl turn into a much more audible, almost like a bark, but unlike a dog's bark, this was bigger, vicious, and it's like it lunges. But not at you, interestingly enough, and then you awake from your dream.
Not like that.
So the next day, you're all out of sorts because of this, but you were definitely looking forward to the performances, so that was kind of keeping your spirits up, and you were really excited to see the entirety of the newcomers. Performance. That was going to be the first time you got to see it in its entirety. So fast forward a little bit to that night, a crowd had gathered at the main stage, where that's where they put the biggest acts. And so you knew that for this guy to have the main stage on the last night, he had to be something special. Like he had to be good at what he does, or we wouldn't have gotten that. Ross doesn't make bad business decisions, and so he's always very tactical with where he puts things, and so putting this guy in this slot on this stage was very intentional, and so the anticipation's real. So the stage was empty though. The guy's not up there, other than 3 wooden stools, separated by about 3 feet apart, separated about just kind of spread out across the stage. Apples sitting on each one, so 1 apple on each stool, and so right now the crowd is just kind of just waiting for the show to start. Everybody's kind of chatting about shows that they had seen earlier in the day, and especially talking about some extremely powerful ale that one of the dwarves in your troupe makes. And more than a few people were laughing at their friends that had a bit too much of that to drink. And so in all of this, suddenly you see a flash and a blur right before hearing one of the apples fall to the wooden stage with a thud. And after the apple stops moving, you see that on the other side of it, a knife had been embedded deep into the apple.
Where is he? Do I see him?
You see him kind of, or you don't. You see him, but you see that where the knife came from was kind of over to the right of the crowd, like inside the crowd.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool.
And so as you're looking over that direction, you see another flash and another blur from this time from the left side of the crowd, and hitting the leftmost apple.
What?
On the stage, same thing. It rolls off. It hits the knife hits the apple, embeds deep inside it. Apple falls to the stage with a thud and kind of rolls to a stop. And so at this point, everybody in the crowd's like trying to figure out what is going on. Where is all this coming from? And as they're kind of looking around,
I'm jumping to try to see him.
as they're kind of looking amongst themselves, like figuring out like where's all these knives coming from. Everybody's snapped to attention as Renzo Barbato is standing on stage, holding the third apple.
Yeah, Renzo.
And so the crowd is like mesmerized by this guy that's just kind of standing there. His long feathery hair just seemingly falling right into place, and he tosses the third apple up above the crowd, and everybody's kind of watching it, and almost like he's tossing cards. Playing cards, he throws 3 knives directly into the apple while it's in the air. The third knife locking the apple into a wooden signpost up above the crowd, preventing the apple from falling into the crowd. Thunderous applause. Everybody erupts, and everybody loves it. So it's an impressive opener. Show basically continues from there, and it definitely goes on without losing any steam. So so you're enjoying yourself, watching Renzo perform, and towards the end of the show, something else catches your eye. Something in the crowd pulls your attention away from Renzo, and it would take a lot to do that at this point. The glimpse that you catch is of a gray blur, almost reminding you of your dream. Red flags, just like your dream, go up, and you've got this danger sense, but you kind of pass it off. But because of the dream, instead of putting your focus back on Renzo, you continue to watch the crowd, and sure enough, you see another gray blur, catching this time. This time you see that it's like a gray traveling cloak.
Like the same person or a different person?
The same thing. This time you see it closer to the edge of the crowd, and it looks like he's definitely making steps toward the front, towards the stage.
Let me move towards him. Can I move towards him?
Uh-huh.
I'm little, just like pushing through people.
Yeah. As you get kind of closer to him, get a better angle, you see a wooden contraption in his hand, and as soon as the person next to you kind of moves just a little bit, you see that it's a hand crossbow, and on the tip of the dart you see some kind of liquidy substance that had like a small drip come from it.
I'm gonna shout. Hey.
Yep.
Shout at him. I'm like doing the waving, and I'm just a kid, but like I'm pointing at him.
Yeah.
Getting people's attention.
So, people definitely around you, paying attention. Give me a roll. Roll just like a charisma check, or even a performance check if you want. Okay. Yeah, you definitely draw the attention of, for sure, the people like in your immediate vicinity, but even those like around the people that you're around, and the people that are standing next to the guy that has the hand crossbow with the gray cloak that you're pointing at, look at where you're pointing, and they see him. They see the weapon, and immediately people react and respond to this. The would-be assassin sees that he's been caught out, stows his hand crossbow very quickly, and turns heel, and he takes off.
What does he look like? Like, can I?
Yeah, roll perception.
Oh.
You can see that he's got some dark leathers going on. but beyond that, like as far as like facial features, you can tell that he's a man from facial hair. But beyond that, it's just like the more important thing to you at the moment was the crossbow.
Stranger danger. Yeah.
Yep.
It's okay. It's okay.
And so when he runs off, a few people also like chase after him from the crowd, and a few like holy defenders of the local town are even called to give chase to him. And so suddenly there's like this lull across the crowd as people are trying to figure out, other people like across the crowd are trying to figure out what's going on. The people around you and around where the man was are just kind of in shock of like, wow, what just happened? And thinking about what almost could have happened, and Renzo, recognizing the kind of sensitive nature of the situation, brings the crowd's attention back from the interruption, and gives a small little monologue thanking everybody for coming out, and makes a small joke about the guy with the crossbow, something about the crossbow being a small one, and so it makes the crowd laugh. It brings the mood back to light, and so he thanks everybody for coming out, and he does one final trick to end the show on a high note. And so after everybody enjoys themselves and applauds, and Renzo takes a bow, exits the stage, crowd starts to disperse, and part of your job for the troupe is to help clean up after shows. And this would be a long one since it's the last show of the location, and you're about to head out to Tavares the next morning. So after the crowd leaves and disperses a bit, you start begin the cleanup. You start doing your job, and out of your peripheral, you see a figure kind of approaching you, and as you look up, you see that it's Renzo.
I'm not actually bouncing, but Sarah's bouncing.
Hello.
Hi.
He kind of stops short of you. His hands just kind of casually resting on his hips. He looks at you, almost making you a little bit uncomfortable. He's got a small smile to him, and he says, "I saw you. I saw what you did."
Saw what you did too. That was a really great show. I'm Wren.
Hi, Wren. My name is Renzo. And he takes your hand. He says, Wren. It's a good name.
Thanks, I like it.
Like the bird?
I guess.
Okay, little bird. I saw what you did with calling out the man with the crossbow. Nobody else saw that. How did you see him? Across the crowd.
I'm just quick, I guess.
Really?
I suppose.
You see a flash. Make a dexterity saving throw.
And Renzo kills you. And that's the whole thing.
Not bad.
It's pretty good. I'm kind of, she's little Wren, she's small.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even still, you you rolled really well. You've got like you're basically picking up trash is what's happening, and so you've got like almost like a dust, like a trash scooper.
Enthusiastically.
Yeah,
but
it's nice. Yeah. And so suddenly his foot sweeps out and kicks your trash scooper out from your hand, and it kind of spins through the air. You reach out to try to grab it, and you do, but you realize that there was no like resistance to the, like, it didn't like continue spinning in your hand as it would have, and you realize that he also had his hand on it. And he says, "It was a good catch." but I don't think you're quite as quick as you said you were.
Not as quick as you, clearly.
I didn't even see the man with the crossbow, and I had a better vantage point. How did you know he was there?
I just knew.
But how?
I had a feeling he was there.
A 10-year-old girl has a feeling that there's a man with a crossbow in a crowd of people that are having a great time. Forgive me for not believing you, but I don't believe you.
I had a dream, and it had just reminded me of my dream, and I thought that he was dangerous, and I moved closer, and he was dangerous, and so I said something, picking up my trash as I talk.
He stopped. He pauses for a minute. You can see that he moved from being playful to still having an air of gentleness and positivity, but very pondering. And he says, "Tell me more about this dream. What was it of?"
Oh, I have an active imagination. I guess there was just the woods and a wolf, and I just thought this guy reminded me of the wolf. And I didn't like the wolf, and I didn't like this guy, so it seemed similar. Picking up trash.
Do you have these dreams often, Wren?
No.
Is this the first time this has happened?
I think so. That I've noticed.
What about other dreams? Do you have other dreams?
Well, I have all kinds. I mean, I dream all the time, but I guess I've had other dreams that have made me feel, one in particular, that same sense of danger, I guess.
Well, little bird, I can say that that's a very special thing. I don't want to make you feel like you're not normal, but I think that you're very special. I will be going with you guys to Varus. I'll be traveling with you. Ross has hired me to perform. Come find me in the caravan, and we'll talk more along the way.
Okay.
I want to hear more about these streams. Okay.
I guess. It was nice to meet you, Renzo.
It's nice to meet you, little bird. And so he basically gives a small bow and turns on his heel and walks away.
I love Renzo so much. I love him.
Okay, so for over the next few days, I'm assuming you do go and find
Yes.
Renzo in the caravan. Yeah. So as you're
awesome.
as you're walking alongside Renzo and you're discussing your dreams and your thoughts, he's asking you about everything, and just small talk, even just general conversation. And he starts to give you insights into these dreams having meaning, and that it's not normal. While dreams are normal, sure. It's not often that people have dreams and then see some kind of reality from it, even if it is a translation of feeling, like you told him about the wolf and the man in the gray cloak. He as you went into greater detail about that dream, connecting the details to the real life situation, it was too. Basically, he was saying that there's no such thing as coincidence. He also learned that you're not 10, you're actually 13. And so he had hoped that he didn't offend you, by calling you younger than you were.
Right.
But he very easily, very, very easing into it, very subtly at first, starts kind of giving you insights into his faith in the Raven Queen. that you knew was one of the seven deities of Nevin, one of the lesser deities, of course, all of them being lesser than Asmodeus. But paying particularly close attention to her teachings about fate. You know, he would ask you questions about what do you think about all the things that you do, the decisions that you make? Do you think that we're here for a reason? And asking you very higher order level questions, very deep questions, require a lot of thought. Wren would have pondered these things, right?
Yes, you would have.
The Raven Queen is often seen as the goddess of death, and he admits that while that's partially true, it's not what the Raven Queen is all about. It's much more than that. It's not like this. She's not the goddess of bringing death. It's more that all paths lead to death eventually. Putting a lot of emphasis really on the things that you do before you get to death's door. He talked about purpose, and he talked about fate. He said a couple of the things that he said that he tried to explain to a 13-year-old in the best way he could. All things have a purpose. That you, Wren, you have a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. There's meaning, special meaning to your life. Just like there's special meaning to everyone's life. And they may not realize it, but it doesn't make it any less true. You know, and having purpose might make it seem like that fate is deterministic, that what happens to everybody is already written, that that you don't really have any control over what happens to you or the things that you do, because you have fate, right? You have destiny, you have purpose. If you were placed here for a reason, then how is it that you can go against that reason, right? And again, still having trouble explaining this in an incredibly smooth way, you still find a way to connect the dots and understand it, at least in a rudimentary level. He explains it as a coin, but what he says is on the other side of the coin of purpose and destiny and reason is choice, in that we all have choice and we have say in our fate, that we get to determine, we get to decide if we're going to be a hero or if we're going to be a villain. We get to respond. We get to decide how we respond to a situation that's out of our control. That is our own way of determining who and what we are, and that on the other side of that coin, purpose and reason are both working together with your choices. And so just basically over the next few days heading into Tavares, he's sharing these things, and once you get to Tavares, and ending up staying there, Dad, Ross, has so much fun and is so excited about the newness of everyday life in Tavares that you end up staying there for several years. And so over the course of those years, you get to know Renzo much better, and he's able to explain and expand upon these ideas much more fully. So you have never stayed anywhere as long as you've stayed in Tavares. 7 years is an incredibly long time. It's the closest thing to a permanent residence that you or anybody in the troop really has ever had. Maybe some of the people came from a permanent residence and joined the troop. But as far as their life of traveling with the troop, this has been the longest stop that anybody's ever had in this particular troop with Ross at the helm. Your father had felt kind of now, 7 years later, that the troop had exhausted its profitability in Tavares, and that it was, as sad as it may be for a lot of its members, it's time to move on and head out to the next city, which would be Morgoth by the mountains. Let's see. Would you have ever seen mountains before? No, actually, you've never seen mountains. You can see in Tavares, you can see them often in the distance, but you've never seen mountains
Up close.
up close. Yeah. So that's an exciting thing for you, but you're sad to leave Tavares.
Yeah, I love Tavares.
The troop had lost a few members, as people had decided to find consistent work in Tavares. There's a lot of entertainment. It's a huge entertainment city going on, so a lot of people were just able to find consistent work and consistent pay, and that was attractive to them. So they left the troop, but then also other people joined the troop, and they enjoyed the idea of having something different to do every day, and different scene, different scenario, and they enjoyed the idea of traveling, one day, even if that meant, working in Tavares just in different parts for the next couple of years. They knew that one day the troop would leave and go somewhere else, and that was attractive to them. So you've lost a few members, gained a few more members, as it goes with the troop. But Renzo had stayed the entirety of the time, and you grew.
My buddy.
You grew closer to him, and he grew fond of the lifestyle and enjoying time with you, honestly. And every now and then, curiously, he would disappear for a while, but he would always come back. It was only for maybe a couple days at a time.
So when Renzo comes back from being gone for a couple days, I totally am not suspicious of him at all as Ren, but does he look physically the same? Like, is he just fine? Like, does he look beat up at all, or is he just that I would notice? Like, would I be worried about him? Would I be like, hold up, you don't look so good?
Roll, I guess, in inspection.
I'm not suspicious of him. I'm just... Investigation, did you say?
Yeah, investigation.
Great. He looks fine. Great. Perfect.
Not once were you... So you said you weren't ever suspicious. If there was any ever kind of like black eyes or whatever, it was just a weird shadow. That's all it was.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. I love it. Get them all out of the way now. It's
so
fine.
I gotta say that is the first natural one of the new adventure.
Nailed it. You're welcome.
Anyone has rolled yet. So
great. Damn it. Doing something. I want to know what it is.
Okay, so your dreams over the last 7 years, leading up to this point, now that you're 20, you're into adulthood now, and your dreams that are of a premonition nature have become more frequent through the years, and have now gotten to a point of being almost present every night.
Okay.
Now it might be every night, but it's hard to tell sometimes, like because kind of now you're looking for it. It's almost like proofreading a paper, right? That you're looking for mistakes, and so sometimes you make a mistake, like you see mistakes that aren't there.
Yeah.
And so now you're starting to go through like life, and you're looking at it like, oh, was that what that meant? I don't know, maybe hard to tell. But whenever you do see something though that you dreamed, it's very obvious to you. Oh, forgot to mention that you had the dream with the wolf and the sheep, and the light and the ropes and the raven. Mm-hmm. You've had that dream a couple more times.
Okay.
By this point, but your dad announces to everybody, that the troop's going to be leaving Tavares, going to have a few more shows, going to head to Morgoth. So a few days go by, and this is the night before you guys are set to leave Tavares and head to Morgoth, where you guys are sleeping. You're in the city in like a vacant lot between some buildings. Instead of setting up individual tents, it's better, safer, if you guys had all set up basically like this main, very large tent, and kind of all just kind of set up cots and beds and placemats, just as a community, had like a big community sleeping tent. Like I said, this is the night before you guys are set to leave for Morgoth. You dream again. You are you're walking in a city street. You take a turn. The streets are empty. It's night. You take a turn off of the street, going down an alley, walking down the cobblestones, and you see a gap in the street in the stones, revealing a patch of dirt, and it looks like the earth has been like freshly dug. And it looks like relatively loose, and so you reach down and you start to kind of just dig through it yourself. You see a glint of gold. Ooh. And so seeing the shiny, you keep digging and you reveal more and more gold pieces. And so you keep after digging for a little bit, you've amassed a sizable, a good sized collection of gold coins, right? And in this dream that you're having. And so you keep digging, find as many gold coins that you can, and your fingers suddenly touch something soft. And it's not dirt, it's not gold, it's not a gold coin, it's something different. So you keep digging, and what you realize is that you uncover a cheek of a person's face. It's skin. Removing a bit more of the dirt, you see an eye. It's open, but there's no life to it. The eye, recognizably, is brown, and what is normally full of life is unmistakably Renzo's.
I don't like it.
So being jarred by such a vivid nightmare, you wake up at this point in the dream. It's the middle of the night. Everybody's still asleep around you. You scan the tent looking for Renzo, and he's missing.
Okay, it's cool. I gotta find Renzo. Can I find him? I want to try to find him.
Yeah. So you're gonna get up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, if I don't see him anywhere in the tent, like, would I know? Get out of the tent! I gotta get out of the tent. Where's Renzo? Oh my god.
Okay. Are you being careful about like?
Yeah, I don't want to step on anybody or anything.
Okay. Roll stealth.
I'm so stressed out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you bump into a couple of people, but it's, the people that you bump into just kind of shift slightly, and everybody realizes that they're sleeping in a community tent, and that, being bumped into is not unexpected. So if anybody kind of flutters awake, they just shift a little bit and go back to sleep. You make it to the edge of the tent, and you're able to exit and, get into this lot, the edge of the lot where you're at. You see like main streets kind of going either way, but then like kind of to the sides, you see alleys kind of going in between different buildings and houses.
Do I recognize any of them? Like, does it feel like this is where I was in my dream? And does any of it look familiar?
Okay,
like,
yeah.
Beyond, I obviously know where I am, but like...
Roll investigation, yeah. Okay, yeah. Kind of over to your right, you see a sign post that you saw in your dream. And you saw it, thinking back to it, you saw it to your left when you turned right. So if you head down that way and making the signpost on your left, if you take another right, that's where the alleyway was, where you found the coins.
Probably doing something stupid right now, but I'm just gonna go in that direction. I'm gonna try to be like quiet, because I realize that I'm in Tavares at night by myself right now. The streets are empty.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be real quiet. How far away am I from the tent?
You realize that you have to go, that you have to walk about half a block to get to where the sign is, and then where the alleyway was, you realize is about another quarter or so of a block away.
All right, I'm just gonna be quiet and just like as much as I can be quiet and just get like a visual on like looking around corners and stuff. Sara.
Okay. Roll perception.
Gotta get to Renzo, dummy.
Okay. So as you approach the corner where the alleyway is, you start to hear some voices. And they're hushed voices. You can't really tell who they are, who's speaking, but they're definitely male. As you peek around the corner, you see they're silhouetted, but you can make out the shape of Renzo speaking with another man. Now that you've kind of got your head slightly around the corner, and like you're with your ear being on that side of where the sound is kind of reverberating from the walls and the stones, you hear bits and pieces of apparently Renzo had shared some information of some sort with this mystery guy that you don't know who it is, and looking down the alley, you see that something that the other man handed something small in nature, about the size of a fist, to Renzo. And whenever he dropped it in Renzo's hand, you heard the unmistakable sound of coins.
Damn it. Okay. I just see silhouettes, right? Like I recognize Renzo because I know him, but I have no idea what the other guy looks like.
Right.
And there's no like, the alley's just like, is there any like debris or shenanigans in it that I could like potentially try to hide behind? Or is it like just a straight up alley, no boxes of flotsam and jetsam anywhere?
Flotsam and jetsam.
Yeah.
No crates that you can see, at least not between you and them. There is a slight curvature of the walls.
Okay, that's fine. You just handed him gold, so I'm just gonna keep.
All right, so as you're deciding what to do, or in trying to figure out what to make of this, you see a couple more silhouettes.
What a bitch.
Start like they kind of stepped out away from like another wall, and Renzo apparently didn't expect this. This wasn't part of normal operations apparently, because he responded very almost negatively to this happening, and he raises his voice a little bit enough for you to hear him ask what's going on. That the guy was supposed to come alone, and you hear more kind of hushed voices, and you only catch one line, and it's you picked the wrong organization to spy on.
Motherfuck. Going to cast message, and I'm going to tell Renzo to run.
So what exactly are you going to say?
I'm just gonna say, Renzo, get out of there.
So
because the guys are on the other side of him, right? So he would
Right.
run towards me if he's running away. Okay.
Right. So hearing your voice inside his head, he stops and his back goes straight, and he turns around to see where the message where this is coming from. He looks down the alley and he sees you. And he steps just close enough to where the moonlight kind of shines a little bit across his face, and you can see that he's very surprised to see you, very alarmed, and he responds mentally. He says, "Wren, what are you doing? Get out!" And the beginning of the sentence, "You shouldn't be here," but he's cut off short, and you don't understand why.
Fuck.
Looking down, though, you see a small shine glimmer from a bit of steel protruding from his chest.
Fuck. Okay.
The glimmer goes away, and Renzo crumples to the ground, his coins that he was holding in his hand falling all around him.